I turned 18 on a rainy evening that should have felt special. For most people, birthdays are filled with laughter, family, cake, and maybe even a few surprises. But for me, there was only silence. The apartment was empty. No friends waiting with balloons. No family gathered around a table. Just the ticking of a clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the chipped paint on the wall, and realized this was it. This was adulthood. Not a celebration, but an empty room and a loneliness that settled into my bones. But then I saw it. At first, I thought it was just trash. A crumpled plastic bag sitting awkwardly near the door. But when I picked it up, I realized there was something inside. Something heavy. Something solid. I reached in and pulled out a box. It wasn't large, but it felt important. The wood was old and scratched, like it had lived 100 lives before reaching me. A lock hung from the front, rusted but fragile, as if daring me to open it. I froze. Who would leave something like this for me? And more importantly, why now? There was no card, no note, just the box. My fingers trembled as I examined it, running over the grooves carved into the wood. And then I noticed it, initials faintly scratched into the bottom. M.A. My heart sank. I didn't know anyone with those initials. Or at least I thought I didn't. I tried the lock, and to my surprise, it clicked open without a key. Inside, I found papers. Dozens of folded, yellowed papers tied together with string. Beneath them, a faded photograph. I lifted the picture carefully. It showed a man standing beside an old car, his face half-shadowed but familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I didn't recognize him, yet something about the sharp line of his jaw and the intensity of his eyes felt close. Too close. Beneath the photograph, there was something else, a letter with my name on it. I hesitated. My hands shook so badly I could barely unfold the paper. "Happy birthday," it began. My throat went dry. The handwriting was rough, uneven, but every word felt deliberate. "I know this is not the kind of gift you expected, but you deserve the truth. For 18 years, pieces of your life have been hidden from you. What you've been told is not the whole story. If you're brave enough, follow the clues. They'll lead you to the answers. But be warned, once you start, there is no turning back." I read it again and again. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. The truth? Hidden from me? What truth? I sat back, suddenly dizzy. Memories of childhood came rushing back. Times when adults around me whispered in corners and went silent when I entered the room. Times when I asked about my father, only to be met with vague answers or sudden subject changes. And my mother, the way her eyes sometimes clouded when I pressed too hard. She always said he wasn't around and that it was better this way. But the vagueness of her words had always stung. Now, holding that letter, I realized something terrible. Maybe she hadn't been telling me everything. The box suddenly felt heavier in my lap, like it was filled not with papers and photographs, but with secrets. I could have shoved it all back inside, locked the box and thrown it away. Pretended none of it existed. Pretended my life was simple, even if it was lonely. But I didn't, because somewhere deep inside me, curiosity burned hotter than fear. I untied the bundle of papers. Inside were maps, addresses, and handwritten notes. Some were so faded I had to squint to read them. They looked like records, dates, names, transactions. Some notes had arrows and underlines, as if someone had been investigating something. And at the very bottom was another envelope. This one didn't have my name. It had only 2 words scrawled across the front. Trust no one. That night, thunder cracked across the sky, as if nature itself wanted to make the moment more dramatic. I sat on the floor with the contents of the box spread out around me, the rain pounding against the window. Questions swirled inside my head like a tornado. Who left this for me? Was it really connected to my father? Was he alive or dead? And if he was alive, why had he never come for me? And why now, why on my 18th birthday? I didn't have the answers. But I knew one thing. My life had just shifted. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about my past, it suddenly felt fragile, like a glass window about to shatter. As midnight approached, I gathered the papers back into the box, intending to hide it under my bed until I could think more clearly. But just as I reached for the lock, there was a sound. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. My blood turned to ice. No one visited me. No one even knew it was my birthday. Who could it possibly be at this hour? I crept toward the door, my footsteps muffled against the thin carpet. My hand hovered over the doorknob, shaking. Another knock. This one louder. My heart hammered. I pressed my ear to the door but heard nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. I swallowed hard, gripping the knob. Part of me wanted to open it to see if maybe, just maybe, this was connected to the box. But another part of me screamed not to, because sometimes, when you go looking for the truth comes looking for you first. When the knocking stopped, the silence felt even louder. I stood there frozen, my hands still gripping the doorknob, until finally I stepped back. Whoever it was, they didn't knock again. I waited a few minutes, my heart racing, then peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I locked the door, pushed the box under my bed, and lay awake until the sun came up. Sleep never came. My thoughts kept circling back to the letter, the photograph, the words, "Trust no one." By morning, I couldn't stay still any longer. I pulled the box back out and went through the papers one by one. Most of the notes looked like pieces of someone's personal investigation. Dates, names, addresses, short comments scribbled in the margins. Some of the addresses were nearby, places I recognized from walking around town. And then I saw it. One of the addresses was less than 10 minutes away. I shouldn't have gone. Every part of me knew it was dangerous. But curiosity can be stronger than fear. By the afternoon, I found myself standing in front of a rundown building with peeling paint and broken windows. I checked the paper again. The address matched. Inside, the air smelled of dust and mold. The hallway was lined with old mailboxes, most of them broken or empty. I followed the numbers until I reached the door listed on the paper. I hesitated, then knocked lightly. No answer. I turned the knob and to my surprise, the door creaked open. The room inside was small and dark, but it wasn't empty. Papers were scattered across a desk. On the wall, there were photographs pinned up. My heart dropped when I saw them. They were pictures of me. Some from years ago when I was a child at school. Some recent, from places I didn't even know anyone was watching. Me walking home, me sitting in the park, me standing outside the grocery store. Whoever lived here had been watching me for a very long time. I stepped closer to the desk. Among the papers, I found a notebook filled with notes about me. What time I left home, where I usually went when I came back. Day after day, week after week. And then I saw a name scribbled on one of the pages. My father's name. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't random. This wasn't just a stranger. Whoever had been keeping this record of me knew about him. Maybe even knew where he was. But before I could read more, I heard footsteps in the hall. Panic surged through me. I stuffed the notebook into my backpack, glanced around one last time, and slipped out the back door just as the front door opened. I didn't look back. I just ran. By the time I reached home, my lungs were burning. I locked the door, closed the blinds, and dumped everything from the box and the notebook onto the floor. Piece by piece, I started to see a story forming. My father wasn't just absent. He was involved in something dangerous. The papers hinted at shady deals, hidden money, and names of people I didn't recognize. And the notes in the notebook suggested that whoever was watching me wasn't just curious. They were making sure I didn't find out the truth too soon. The more I read, the more I realized the warning on the envelope was serious. Trust no one. That night, I confronted my mother. I held up the photograph of the man by the car and asked her who he was. Her face went pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "Where did you get this?" When I told her about the box, she grabbed the photo from my hand and tried to hide it behind her back. But I'd already seen the fear in her eyes. "Tell me the truth," I demanded. "Who is he? What are you hiding from me?" Tears welled up in her eyes. She sat down slowly, her hands shaking. "You weren't supposed to know. she whispered. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Her words cut deeper than any lie. She told me my father wasn't the man she had described all these years. He wasn't just someone who wasn't around. He had been involved with dangerous people, people who hurt others, people who couldn't be trusted. She said he left to protect us, but that protection came at a cost. Silence, secrets, lies. But I didn't feel protected. I felt betrayed. All my life I had been living inside a half-truth, never knowing who I really was. I shouted at her, demanding answers. Where was he now? Was he still alive? Could I find him? She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. If you keep digging, you'll regret it. Some doors should never be opened. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't unsee the photographs, the maps, the notebook filled with notes about me. I couldn't ignore the letter telling me to follow the clues. That night, as the storm raged outside again, I sat alone with the box and the notebook, staring at the words over and over. Trust no one. And for the first time, I realized it might include her too. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I couldn't just sit in that apartment anymore. The box had changed everything. The clues inside, the notebook, the photograph, they had cracked open a part of my life I could never close again. I left early, before my mother woke up. I couldn't face her after what she had told me, or rather, after what she refused to tell me. If she wouldn't give me the answers, I would have to find them myself. The first address I chose from the papers led me across town to a small diner. It looked ordinary from the outside, but inside it felt heavy, like the air carried secrets. I sat in a booth with the notebook open, comparing details from the notes to the people around me. And then I saw him, an older man with tired eyes and a sharp jawline that looked too much like mine. He sat alone in the corner, sipping coffee and reading a newspaper. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was like the photograph had stepped out of the box and into reality. I wasn't sure what to do. Walk over? Ask him who he was? Confront him with everything? My hands trembled under the table. But before I could decide, he folded the paper, stood up and walked out. I scrambled to follow him, my heart hammering. Outside, the rain had started again, light at first but steady. I trailed him down the street, afraid to get too close but terrified to lose him. Finally, he turned into a narrow alley, and when I followed, he was gone. All that remained was a folded note on the ground. My name was written on it. I picked it up with shaking hands. The message inside was short. Stop searching. It will only hurt you. My stomach twisted. Was this a warning or a threat? I went home with more questions than answers. My mother looked at me with red eyes when I came through the door. She didn't ask where I had been. She didn't have to. She knew. That night we finally talked. Really talked. She told me that yes, the man I saw was my father. Yes, he was alive. But no, I couldn't have him in my life. He had chosen a path filled with dangerous people and dark choices. And though he loved me, he stayed away because bringing me into his world would destroy me. Her voice broke when she said it, but I could see the truth in her tears. He had been near all along, watching from the shadows, keeping distance to keep me safe. The photographs, the notes, the letters, they weren't meant to scare me. They were his way of protecting me, of reminding himself I existed, even if he couldn't be by my side. I didn't know whether to hate him or forgive him. Part of me wanted to scream, to ask why love had to look like absence, why protection had to feel like abandonment. Another part of me, a quieter part, understood. The box wasn't a curse. It was a choice, a chance for me to decide whether I would chase the past or build my own future. That night I sat with my mother, the box between us, and for the first time in years we spoke honestly. We were both victims of the same silence, both left with the same scars. And though the truth hurt, it also freed me. I didn't need to keep chasing shadows. I didn't need to define myself by the secrets of people who came before me. I was old enough now to choose who I wanted to be, not just whose blood ran in my veins. The papers, the maps, the warnings, they all went back into the box. I locked it, not to forget, but to move forward. The answers I found were painful, but they gave me the strength to write my own story instead of living inside someone else's secrets. On my 18th birthday, I thought I had been left with nothing. But that box gave me something greater than any gift. It gave me the truth. And with the truth came a choice. I chose myself.